I'm Cody Alexander. I run the website matchquarters.com. I'm currently the secondary coach at Midlothian High School here in South Dallas. And today I'm going to talk to you, kind of go through trips, my philosophy, kind of what I do that's a little bit unique. As we go along, if you want to just type questions in the chat, I'll try and see those. And then obviously, hold on, hold on. What? Well, just ask him. I got how much? Sorry, my father-in-law, of course, had the guy come mow right at the moment that I'm coming on here, so I apologize. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of go through my presentation and then answer questions as we go along. So it's up on top. So talking about definitive trips. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about trips philosophy, how to choose a coverage. I don't know who this Jared is, but quit requesting a remote control. And then explain the coverages, backside coverages, 4-down philosophy, and then 7-man coverages from a 4-down. Because I think anymore we've got multiple ways of doing things. So if you're a 4-down or a 3-down, I want to be able to make sure to give you kind of a look at different things. So what is my overall trips philosophy? First of all, I want to know, what are they running? What are the concepts? Who are they throwing to? And then is it number one? Are they throwing to number one to the trip side, or are they throwing to the X receiver? I think all of those are important, and those are things that you need to know. And then who are they throwing to? I mean, sorry, I don't know who Jared is, but Jared is making me mad because he keeps trying to request access to the deal. So I apologize.
Yeah, I'm removing some people, Coach.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I apologize, guys. I'm gonna make sure that we get this right. I want to make sure that you guys get everything that you need. All right. So in terms of choosing a coverage, so let's go back. Sorry, train of thoughts messed up because I kept having it was like blinking on my screen. So how are they going? I want to play the boundary safety from the table. So what does that mean? I want them to be at 10 yards. I want them to be in the post hole, and then I want to sink them down if I have to, only when the ball is handed off. I think you get into trouble when you start inserting that guy either in the A gap or you bringing him down when you go to trips because you're trying to push everybody out. And when you do that, that kind of becomes you're just opening it up for the glance route. The one thing that we have not had a problem with has been that glance route from behind. And so I want to make sure that as you see this stuff, understand that guy's coming from the boundary. I mean, he's coming from the table. He's going to stay high, and he's going to hold that what I call post control as long as he possibly can. If you're a 3-down, you need to find out, do we need a 4th rusher, or are we going to play fits? That's important because if you're one of those that you want a delayed rush, if you want a delayed rush guy, then where are you bringing him? In single receiver side, you usually want to bring the outside backer. But if you don't want to sling that wheel all the way out there, or depending on where the back is, you may want to play that out or play some sort of a shared rush game, which we can talk about here as we get going. And then know what you're going to get in return. So understand how your coverage works, and then what the answers are going to be, so that you can see instantly what they're trying to do, and then you can be able to counter that. So how do I choose a coverage? I want to know where the rub routes are. Usually you're going to get some kind of high-low scheme, or they're going to put 2 receivers together, and they're going to try and rub those guys. And you're either going to get some sort of like a 2 guys crossing each other, and it may be vertically or it may be right at 5 yards, but you're going to get some sort of rub. I want to know where that's coming from in order so I can determine what coverage to do. And then what do we need to do with the X receiver? Do we need to double them? Do I need to leave my backside safety there? Can I kick them to the trip side? Can my boundary corner handle the X? Those are all questions you need to ask, because that changes your coverage and what you want to do coverage-wise. Splits. Where are these guys lined up? Like I've been watching some LSU tape, their trips is pretty much like the NFL. You've got a guy about 3 to 4 yards from the tight end, from the tackle. You've got another guy kind of splitting about 5-6 yards away from him, and then that number one receiver, he's not all the way out there. And then kind of a little bit about my background coming from Baylor under Art Briles, that's a completely different set of rules and a different set of splits for trips. I mean, the number 3 receiver never, if the ball's on the hash, the number 3 receiver never came inside the opposite hash. The number 2 receivers on the numbers, and the number 1 receivers outside, almost touching the sideline. So how do those coverages adjust, or how do you adjust that in terms of how are you going to play that? And then a little history lesson. So 2018 was a kind of a breakout year for Midlothian. It was the first time we made it to the second round of playoffs in 20 years. And looking at it on the surface level against trips, we were so multiple against trips that it ended up being most teams didn't want to run trips because they didn't know what they were going to get because it was such a mixed bag every time. The problem was we were so multiple that we really were never good at anything. So if you really look down at the data, we were multiple. Yes, it was fantastic to be that multiple. But in terms of what we could do and kind of analytically looking at it, we didn't get much in return. And so I really took this last offseason before 2019, so the spring of 2019, to really kind of look at how we were teaching things and be a little bit more analytical about, okay, what coverages do we really want to use, and how we want to go about that. And so what that brings to me is my number one coverage, which is stress. I think that's what most people, I would assume, kind of know me for. And so for me, stress is basically taking what I call mod corners. So mod quarters, which is your off man kind of quarters concept. And we're going to stretch it across the trips. So we're going to have a mod corner here. So mod just means man outside deep. So if number 1 goes outside or number 1 goes deep, he's got him locked up. Okay, the only thing that we've done differently is we've uncapped the Sam linebacker. And uncapped means there's not a third level defensive back on top of him. So if you look at this, the Sam linebacker is uncapped. And here's kind of the unwritten rule about trips, is that no matter what coverage you run, whether it's cover 3 or whether it's split field quarters, you're probably going to have your Sam linebacker uncapped at some point. Unless you're kicking a guy out, and we'll talk about solo here in a second, unless I'm kicking that guy, I can't cap him. But you bring up a whole bunch of other issues, which I'll talk to when we get there, when you bring that guy over. So now you've got 5-on-3. And so how does that change everything? So what stress does is it just stresses the Sam linebacker. And what I've found is that if the further out that you can make that throw from the quarterback, then the better off you're going to be. Then you multiply that by lengths down the field, and then that percentage drops. So in stress, we want you to throw that deep comeback, because most quarterbacks cannot make that throw. If they could, we would already know about them, because they'd be having every Power 5 school in the country would be offering them, and then those guys end up going and playing in the NFL. So for me, what I want to do is, if we're going to throw a vertical to number 2, that thing's going to have to bend all the way back out, and that thing's going to be a long throw for that guy. So just kind of going through the techniques. So the field corner is going to be at 7 yards, and he's going to slide out. That's going to be he's going to be cocked towards open field. It's going to be an open stance, meaning that his feet are going to be apart, and then he's going to slide out, or a lot of people refer to it as a shuffle. I think Saban calls it a shuffle. I call it a slide. And all I do is, in typical camp rules, quarters alignment, he's going to be 6 yards inside shade. All I'm asking him to do is take a step inside and a step back. So it's about 7 yards and about 1.5 yards, 2 yards inside. Sam's going to get a full cover down because he's got to take number 2. He's matching all the way to, and he's only going to late push if 3 pushes. So his push alert is going to be 3. So if he's going to key 3, but he's going to match 2. So if 3 pushes, he's going to work through the curl and then to the flat. And so one of my friends, Coach Kennedy in Alabama, he taught me, he calls it cough, because it's curl over flat. I want to hold the curl before I attack the flat. And I thought that was really clever. So you want to kind of cough this. I want to hold that curl as long as I can and then go on the flat. The one thing that you want to too is when you're identifying this is negative routes. So if he's behind the line and they're not throwing the ball, they're trying to bring you up just to throw it behind you. And so that's important to tell your kids as well. Going to the field safety or the cover safety, he's going to be at 12 yards. He's going to back up because he's kind of he's secondary support. He's going to be only fit support and really kind of work through the funnel if it ends up being a run. Like we get some sort of run action this way, so like a quarterback stretch or option, then he's going to work in and he's going to try and work through this crease right here. He's still going to use his regular step off, and all a step off is I'm going to plant with my front foot, take a 6-inch step, step replace, step replace, step replace, and that's really it. And all these are read steps. And the same thing with the field corner, the boundary safety, and the boundary corners. Those guys are going to have these read steps because I want to be able to trigger on quick throws, and I want to make sure that we can plant and drive early and then transition to a back pedal and then bail out if we need to versus vertical routes. Going to the Mike linebacker, he's going to be in a hip position, but he's going to be able to work out if he needs to because this guy's going to play a heavy technique. So the other thing too is all these coverages fit with the front. Okay, you can't ask this guy to fill that B gap and play a lock 5 and let him run up the field and then have him not fall back in because now you've got him stressed out. So how do you reduce the stress as you play that heavy technique? So if I get an out block or I get a down block on regular zone, I'm taking a dive. Now I've got the quarterback. And what that allows him to do is really just hang. And that's what I call a hang technique. He's just going to hang right there and he's going to wait. And once he sees, and he's going to read the mesh. Once he sees that that ball's handed off, then he'll attack the line of scrimmage. If he sees that the 3 pushes out, he's going to hang there. If he sees 3s hitch up, he's just going to hang there. And he wants to be in that throw window. Okay. So I think to me, that's one of the more important things to understand is that if I have to plus out, then I can give an automatic rip call and tell that guy, hey, I'm too far out. So like if you get a Baylor split team and they're all the way out to the hash and he's got to kind of apex that, he's got to rip that close. Well, what does that turn into? It turns into the tight front. Okay, so to make it just familiar to everybody, that just makes it a tight front. And at the end, I'll go through the 4-down stuff because really all you're doing in a 4-down, you're going to look the exact same. You're just taking that jack and you're putting them here. So that's the only difference between the way that I fit this with a 3-down and a 4-down. Okay. If you can see on the backside, I'm playing from the table. I'm going to be a fast bail only after I read the mesh. Okay. If I read the mesh, then I want to work through the post. Because if number 1's coming to me, then I want to make sure that I'm in that post hole. Okay, and then obviously with your overhang, you can either send him, you can send the will, but he's got to be the first crosser or the final fourth when it comes to pass distribution if you're going to play some drop 8. So, Coach, I don't know if any of them have any questions on.
There was a question in regards to the 4-down stuff, but
yeah,
you're going to cover that later.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I get to the 4-down stuff.
Yes, sir.
So I always get asked too, how does this work into the boundary? So I wanted to make sure that I put this into the boundary so that y'all could see it. So here is what it looks like. Everybody just kind of moves over. Now your 5 is over here. The wheel is hipped. The jack's going to work out. And stress worked really good into the boundary because if you're usually not going to get 3 verticals into the boundary. And if you do, it's very compressed and they're probably trying to throw away. The 2 keys with this is really this guy's got to hang on the hash. So your field safety's got to really hang and leverage the hash before he gets out of there, because either you're getting something brought back in here or you're going to get something that's going to come all the way over. If I get stuck in here and they run a stretch out here, now I'm screwed because I'm tucked into the box and I don't need to be out there. So I always make sure to tell that guy, make sure you leverage your hash. And then what do I do with my edge player isn't necessarily a great cover guy? Well, what this normally turns into, and this is the nice thing about stress because it doesn't turn into quarters, is that it normally into the boundary is going to turn into box. And all boxes is think about like you're drawing a box. He's going to hit the curl. He's going to work to the flat. He's got a quarter, and then your corner's got a quarter. And I think that to me is that's kind of the key there, is that's where you're getting saving these guys. I'm coach, I'm afraid of these verticals. Well, if it's into the boundary, then you're probably not going to get those big verticals. Okay. And so everybody just kind of pulls a chain, and the nice thing about it, so, okay, coach, what if they motion out? Well, then, we can run the tight front, or we can reset the front. He just bumps out, and now nobody's really moved. Everybody goes back. So I'm going to talk. I see a couple guys asking about what's the difference between stump and stubby, and I'm going to talk about those in just a second. This is just kind of basically this is kind of where I start with. And so here is stump. So if you look at, here's stump, here's stress. The alignments are all the same, except the Sam linebacker in stress, we're walling anything inside. Okay. And then here you've got him outside. So he's 6 yards outside eye. He's going to feather. He's basically in stump. He turns into a cover 2 corner. I call it, some people call it X coverage, because you're Xing out number 1. You're not worried about him. So in stress, we're more or less playing like a kind of more of a match. I don't want to call it cover 3, because if I call it cover 3, then people try and teach it like cover 3. And I always get questions about, coach, I'm trying to run it like cover 3 and it's not working. And the reason why is this guy's got to hold number 3. He's got to take all 3 up and back. Here's your 3 back player. He's your 3 back player. So if he goes over the backer, he's got to take him back. But what you're getting is you're playing a game over these guys. These guys are basically matching these guys. And then you're getting an under and an over support, and then you're kind of stealing this guy in the post, or you're playing him backside. So stump, I like stump when these guys are close and these guys are rubbing off of each other. So if we're getting something where he's pushing and he's coming back inside, or we're getting the vertical and they're trying to steal this guy underneath, that's when I like that, because one of the things that you're going to find out is that you're basically playing cover 2 over these guys. Okay. So James, push just means that if I get him, he goes out, I got to push with him. If it means late push, I'm going to hold my area and then I'm going to push. That's what push and then late push means. So stump, I like stump as a changeup because the field corner doesn't change. The cover safety doesn't change. All I'm doing is I'm leveraging number 3. So if number 3 keeps pushing me out, I'm just going to go ahead and put the Sam linebacker outside. Okay. So if camp rules, I'm going to start with stress. This is the number 1 thing we're going to put in, because we run quarters. And what do you do against trips? If you're going to run quarters, you play stress, because we've stressed it out, because it's the same thing. If he pushes, I push, I'm the hook, and it turns into quarters. Okay. So what this is he's modded out. He's got mod on number 1, because what you end up getting in stump and then stubby is you end up getting them bringing him back in and trying to rub him off, or they're trying to isolate him and bring that corner. They bring that corner across and then run him out and then back in to try and work this space right here. What I like about stump and why I prefer stump over stubby is that the field corner now he can kind of support. He's a support player for that nickel. So if I get number 1, if they see this and they're like, oh, they're playing special. Okay. And what I like about stump is that you can start playing your bail game with it. You can have it go look like stubby and then have him pop out. And then teams are going to say, okay, you're in stubby. We're going to bring him across. You pop him out. And you might be able to get like a double on the corner and get a ball thrown to you that way. So this is why this is my changeup. So I get asked all the time, well, what if 2 and 3 get close? So if we're in stress and 2 and 3 get close, I'm not going to ask that Sam linebacker to stay in there. What we're going to do is we're going to check the stump. So Dom, stump and stubby are the same, except in stubby, or what I call special, The field corner now is in mag technique, meaning he's got man everywhere he goes. So that's the difference. You've got here, he's in a mod technique. He's only going to take number one if he's outside and deep. He's playing it a lot like stress. Here in special, he's gonna take that guy regardless. If he runs all the way across, then he's gonna take that guy. And I think that's the biggest difference that you see. Everything else, the way that I teach it, is all gonna stay the same. Okay. So the Mike and the cover safety, he's still gonna take 3 back. Mike's still gonna play underneath a 3. All that's going to change is if 3 pushes, I'm going to be a quick trigger on that. And so again, going back to the beginning of how do I choose the coverage? Well, I want to make sure that I know what I'm getting. So I really only like stump if 2 and 3 are close. Some of this stuff that we start seeing now with the run and shoot stuff probably coming back and people getting more interested in that. I know that's been a big topic. A lot of the times they put these 2 guys close. What happens if I get 1 and 2 close? Well, if 1 and 2 are close, I like stress because, again, you've got him working out. You have a natural switch right here. And so knowing leverage points and being able to leverage that guy is going to be important, and understanding that. Zach, quick trigger just means I'm going to trap it. So if 3 goes out, I'm going to quick trigger down. I'm going to go ahead and get on top of that. Now, obviously, you can teach it different ways. If you're getting a bubble and the ball's out, yeah, you want it to be a quick trigger. You may teach it too where you sail him out. So like if you get in a flood route where he's running the sail and you want him to sail with it and just stay over the bottom route. Because a lot of times whoever stays low, that's who they do not want to throw to. They want to try and get those bigger chunk yards. Okay. So going back to the run fit wise to the heavy technique is if this tackle were to out block, just base block, okay, that DN is going to rub into the B gap. That's called heavy. He's going to line up heavy 5, almost like a 4. If the tackle steps down, he's going to take the dive. And what that does is it makes sure that he doesn't have to fold. Now, yes, it's got a B gap and it's got to fold. But that's only, I put that in there because they have to know where their fit is, but they know that this guy's a heavy, and so it's probably not going to be there. So the big thing that I always get is, well, I'll zone lock you, and we'll pass set on this guy. Well, that's fine. But this DN knows that if he gets a pass set, he can up and under. Because especially if he sees that the ball's handed off, he can up and under. And the nice thing about it, too, is if you get zoned this way, that nose is going to cancel that A gap, and he's going to rock back. And that's why I like a shade over a lag, because if you lag it, that center might be able to kind of manipulate that guy. If you put him in a shade, or even if you put him in a 2-eye, if it's a heavy zone team, I'm not even going to deal with the shade. I'm going to put him in a 2-eye, and now that guard has to step to that nose. So you can run a 3 down and have 4 down principles. And I think that's kind of the key, because that's the thing is like everybody's talking about duo and inside zone and all this stuff. Well, how do you kill that? Well, you put your guys in 3s and 2s. And if you do that, then those guys have to combo each other. And then now you can kind of feel that if it's true zone, that guy's going to step away, and I'm in a 2-eye, I'm going to cut that off. That means I can belly keep back. Now China call, I'm a little bit that you can China call from a stump. You can China call from stress, but you cannot China call from special. And all that is smash rules. So going back to route combinations, I still think, and this is just me, it is really hard for this guy to have his back turned to number 1 and get an out call and work out. And so really, I kind of tell that corner, just kind of slow play the corner. And then if you can get an out call, get an out call. The C gap cutback, like the stuff that you're seeing with LSU start running, all that same side zone stuff where they're trying to wash everybody. No, not as much, because I teach a belly key. Because if you're going to get it, and all Morgan's asking is when that back path comes right here and you get that heavy technique, Because if he's going to work down, he's going to go right now for the running back because he's got the running back. He's got the quarterback. And even then, if that comes out, if that guard latches onto him and that nose closes off that A gap, he should be able to come back. So that's kind of the way that you kind of keep that safe. Now, some of the change-ups is obviously you can have him get a hold call, make him surf, and then make him fold. But then you're exposing yourself to the snag. So that's stump. Let's go to special real quick. So again, if you notice, everything is the same except for the field corner now is going to be man everywhere he goes. That's where the Meg technique comes in. Alan, I'm not playing Jimmy Pony. That's either a two. You're two gapping the players. This is a one. Anytime I get a 5 technique and I get a nose to my side, then we're gonna play. A heavy technique. He's always gonna heavy. It's not gonna be a call. So that's special. That's stress, stump, and special. So what I'll do is before I move on, let's see if does anybody have any questions. So with stress, we see a lot of flood routes. Yes. So you want to teach what I call it's a sail technique, or it's kind of what I alluded to earlier is that cough. You don't want, if you're getting a lot of sail routes, you don't want that SAM to necessarily quick trigger down on that. It's the same thing when you're teaching your cloud concepts and you're teaching cover, like your 2 read stuff. When you're teaching 2 read and you're trapping that bubble, what I'm starting to see now is that teams are running bubble to get you to trap, and then they're throwing right behind you. And so for me, what I want is, I want him to understand what he's getting. If 2's pushing vertical and 3's going flat right now, then I know I'm probably going to get that sail route. And so I just kind of want to zone over that. Joseph, tight front if you put him in here, you're going to get the same thing that you're going to get here. So if you put him in here, you're going to get the same thing that you would in the tight front. If you attach the jack, now you've got the mint front. And so when you run under, let's say you're a 4-down team, and again, I'll get to this at the end. Let's say you're a 4-down team and you run under. This is why I like under to trips. Under to trips is going to fit just like mint, except for you're going to have a 5 technique. So you're going to at least have a solid edge if they go quick, like a quick stretch or something like that. Martin, going back, if I get 4 push quads, these 2 are going to divvy out the back. I'm going to take the new number 3. I'm going to work to my new number 4. Because I've got, I'm going to take him. So that's how that's going to end up work. So if I get a quads push, because the SAM is out of the fit, I don't want him to worry about the back. These 2 are going to divvy out the back. So if I get quads, he's going to work to the back. He's now going to open up. And if 3 comes in low, then we can hit. And again, hang and take. And that's how you work with the running back pushing strong. If a team's running power weak, how are you fitting that? That down safety, so if we get power this week, we get the down, he comes out, that Will should box it. Jack should box it. You should have a cap with the down safety. So hopefully, Wilf, that answered your question. So you get power. You're going to get the double here. He's going to box. Jack's going to box. Down safety should be able to cap that. I like the D end outside because a heavy technique is a read. So if he gets a scoop block, then he knows now that I've got to hold outside. So does that make sense? So that's why I like a heavy technique. So hopefully that answers your question. If you're getting that, if you're getting it to the backside, if you're getting power to the backside, or if you're getting like dart, he should end up spilling that thing because you're getting a down block. He should end up spilling that thing, and then hopefully your Will can get over the top, and then your Mike will meet it on the other side. Where are the Will's eyes with running back strong? He's got 2 weak. In quarters coverage, everybody's. If you can count to 3, then you can find your guy. So if 3's over here, Mike knows that this is my 3. That's who I'm relating to. Will's got 1 guy over here, 2's in the backfield. That's how you make sure that you're your will knows where the back is, and then you go accordingly. Quarterback draw weak. Well, if they're leading it up, you should be able to have him. If he goes up, then he can kind of sink in the middle of the player, be able kind of a spy guy. I think that you get into it with the run fit wise. You kind of want that jack. If he's attached and he's playing D line, let him spill everything. Or if you're going to play mint rules, let him box. Yes, box means contain. So and really that's a comfort feel. If the guy mostly is he's a biscuit away from being your 5 technique, then and you're playing him more like a kind of a stand-up D end, then go ahead and spill it. Because that's how your fits are going to end up fitting out, and then let him play like a D end, basically, because you're playing pretty much a 4 down. If you're more like a mint front rule guy, that guy's kind of a lighter guy, or he's your edge rusher guy, and you want to use him to box, then that's fine too. But you just make sure it stays consistent. That's the one thing that you don't want to do is end up having a whole bunch of different rules depending on the pulls, because a lot of times those kids aren't going to know. They just, hey, I got a puller. This is what I did. But with GT, if you're getting GT, man, yeah, you want to try and kill as much as you can on that, and try and get those guys over top. So, just going back with coverage wise, anybody got any questions about coverages in particular before I move on? So talking about stress, stump. All right. If not, then we'll move on to solo. So solo is basically your kick coverage. It's what I call a safe kick. He can align on the guard, but no further. I don't like solo to trips. And the reason why I don't like it is because you don't have that backside overhang anymore. You don't have that plus number anymore, especially if that back were to jog over here and now the back is weak. They can run speed option, and then this guy's tucked in. It's just bad. He's got the A gap and he's got to make it to the quarterback. I just think that you're asking too much for this guy. But all this does is these guys are going to play the regular 2 over what they normally would in regular coverage. So cloud, sky, here I have cloud illustrated, which is basically what I call 2 read. Nothing changes for the mic. I think the nice thing about all of this, if you've noticed, the mic and the wheel don't really change. Gideon, I will play solo on a passing down. Yes. But as a base down, or a base way of playing trips, I'm not a fan of it. I've been burnt. I've had coaches that want to run it, and then we've been burned on it, especially if they set the back weak. Where I've used solo in this is sprint out. So Josh, I've used solo and sprint out. So if we get sprint out, that mic's going right now, because to me, sprint out is like the back is pushing. So if I get the back to push, he's going to go meet it right now. Now he's going to overlap on the mic. And then what you get in sprint out is really, it turns into solo. I like solo. We played a team where we played split field when the back was weak, and then we played solo when the back was strong because of so much sprint out. We went ahead and just kicked it over there. That way that mic could be a quick trigger, and then the wheel could sit there. I like it too if they're running number 2's their guy, and they're running vertical benders, and they're trying to isolate the Sam, and then they're running 3 back just to try and isolate that guy. I do like that. So Coach James, yes, I agree. Solo is great if they are running routes to the 3 receiver side and they are not running routes to the X receiver, then solo's fine. Also, if they're not running the ball out of trips. If they're not running the ball out of trips, I'm fine with solo to trips. So again, I think going back to the very beginning of this thing, of just knowing what you're getting out of your breakdowns. I like solo, Malik. I like solo as a base out of Trey, and Trey is taking 3 and putting them here on I call it tight end trip. Or Trey. You're putting him here, but then now he can sit on that tackle and he can play. He can kind of be a double alley player, reading that guy. I think that's kind of, I like solo more as a trade check than anything else. But yeah, just to be clear, and that's why I put solo last, is that I've used solo when we get a lot of quads looks, when they're pushing the bag strong and then they're trying to play games and try and run verticals with this, when you get this, now I get the back push, now he can fall off and you can kind of leverage the guys. And so it's nice. It's nice that way. And like you said, who said it? Casey. Yeah, if they go weak and then they're running wheel, and I'll talk about that when I go to the backside coverages here in just a second. You don't want, if that guy can't run with the back, then you're in trouble. If that guy can run with the back, you're fine. But then you're opening yourself up to, like, they can wheel him out, and then they start playing gap plays inside, and now you've lost your overhang because he basically has to man up on number 2. I've seen solo run out of 4-man front, down safety having B gap. Yeah, again, I'm not a fan, and this is just a preference. I'm not a fan of putting the safety who's got a cap of vertical also in an interior gap. And also, I never want to have the B gap open away from the trips. I'm an under guy. I want to run an under front. If you've noticed, even Oki, and when I get to 4 down, you'll see everything's in an under front. I don't want to run an over front. In trade, you keep a heavy 5. Yes, or what we'll do is we'll just lock the 5. Depending on what we want to do. If they're doing a bunch of arc stuff and they're using the tight end to arc and run option, then we'll heavy it. If they're just doing it to run zone, we'll lock them. We'll give them a lock call, and then the Mike just stacks in a 50, and he can always fold back. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about that here in just a second on the backside stuff, because and then I just gave this one as the last one. Like, if it is pure, like, this is really good in the goal line, and this is really good if you know, hey, I'm not going to get 3 verticals, and they're going to do a bunch is playing some box stuff and just pushing everybody over, especially versus this quads alignment. Brandon, his alignment's going to be the same: 5 yards, inside eye, a 2. He's removed from the box fit, so he's just kind of hanging that curl, key 3, almost the same. Mabel's a cover 3 concept, so it fits different because I'm doing it from quarters, Ken. I do not signal in my trips checks, Morgan. Everything is going to be game planned. If I want to do something on a 3rd down, then I'll signal it in. Hey, I want this here. But usually it's game planned, either off the back or off of what we're getting or down a distance. Kids know it, and we've run it since all of practice. But this last one, before I get into the backside routes, I wanted to give you this because I think this is playing some box. I think has merit where you're pushing everybody over one, especially when you get in those high lows, or they're running concepts over here. It kind of gives you some answers, especially in the red zone. Yeah, Cody is super rotation, and so super rotation is if this guy was actually the cover safety, this guy was a down safety, and then the jack backer walks back, and so the down safety actually is the Sam linebacker over here. That's fine, but you don't have the games that you can play because you're losing it's a strong rotation. So you're actually rolling strong. It's that 3 high safety stuff. And anytime you do that and you super rotate, you don't have a backside overhang. All right, so let's talk about backside because I know that was a question. So what do I like in the backside? So the first thing I want to know is, what is the back doing? If the back is strong, and then we can play some cone. And all cone is he's going to bail and he's playing mod. I'm taking that boundary corner is playing all of the fade. He's playing all the fade, and the down safety is playing all of the post. If we end up getting an inside release and he comes inside, then I'm just going to trail. So it ends up being almost like a cover 2 trail, 2-man concept with trail. If he goes out, then he knows the moment that he goes out, I'm snapping my eyes back inside because I know I'm probably getting something coming back this way, and then I'm working through the post. So anytime I get a fade by 1, I'm working through the post. What does that do for your jack? You can either attach him and send him as a 4th rusher, or you can just have him hold the curl and wait for that slant route and let that safety play high. And that's why I like playing him from the table. So kind of if 3 down, playing cone's a little different. If you're going to do some drop 8 stuff, because then you can kind of manipulate that and let him just work to the post right now. So that's cone. That would be if the back is set to this way and we play cone, then he's got to man the back. He's got to man the back. So that's kind of the only little thing if we get the back set weak. Okay, so one of the questions was, what do you do when the back is in there? So I think it's not as important in 3 down as it is in 4 down of being able to understand the back, because you have that extra guy if you don't send him. If you're sending him, you're playing a 4-man rush, then you got to, and I'll talk about that in a second when I get to the 4 down stuff. But let's say he keeps coming out all the time. They're playing games right here, then we'll just play cloud. And the kids already know this is number 1, this is number 2. So the boundary corners read number 2. He comes out. The moment he crosses that line of scrimmage, I'm going to trap it. If he flares, I'm just going to sink and I'm going to zone over it. He's late push. He's holding the seam. So if we get a bunch of slant and we get the out, if we get a reduce and he's running like a corner and he's running the angle, well, he's inside, he's outside, he's holding the seam. Yes, Wes, I'll play press bail off a cone. And then I'll play off. So we have different ways of doing it, and we talk about it that week. Hey, can we press this guy? Because here's the deal: if the kid's like a 6'4", power 5 receiver, and even if we're playing press bail, I'd rather have that corner have the head start and be able to kind of cut them off. If we feel like we can kind of bait them into throwing the fade, then that's when I want to press bail. But to me, this is the easy answer to a back coming out, is playing it like cover 2. Because if you play it like cover 2, now that Will basically becomes the rat and he gets to be the spy, the quarterback guy. So he's a rat or a spy. And so now you're playing, you still have, if you think about it, you still have your 3/2 and you've got 4/3. So you've got your numbers. And then obviously you can send him if you want to, and you play it like empty is really what you're doing. So to me, that's what I look at when they go, why are they putting the back weak? Because I've played a team that passed out of the back strong, and then I've also seen a team where they run out of back weak. So you got to really kind of understand what the team's trying to do. What's the down safety doing cone? If it's a fade, he gets his eyes back inside and he works through the post. So you are always, the thing that I like about the split field and the way that I'm calling this is that this guy is always going to become the post player if one goes vertical. So if one goes vertical, now I'm going to be able to work through the post. You're always going to close off the post. So even though we're running split field and you're looking here and you're like, man, there's a lot of space here. Well, he can work off that hash and just work through that post. Yes, we'll call the boundary cover. They call it. It's a split field. So Austin, they actually call it. The down safety will call cone, or he'll call cloud, or he'll call sky. Those are our 3 base coverages. And cone is really a second and long, third and long when we know we're getting past and we want to double the X. And the back, let's say the back set to the strong side. So that's kind of the kids call it. I don't call it. I don't, now if they're to the sideline and I see something, I may call it. But in terms of like me just signaling in anything on a given play, we signal in the call and then the kids run the coverage behind it. The other thing that you can do is what I call fist, and all fist is doing is playing 2-man. So now I'm Meg, I'm the rat, I'm the quarterback, or I can delay rush, and now I'm just going to take the deepest of the deepest. Okay. And so obviously, how do you adjust that? Like, what if he goes tight? Well, then they banjo it. They give a banjo call, and then now he backs up, and he would take the cross. He would take that, and then it keeps me out of it. So that's another adjustment that you can have of playing like 2-man to that. Empty. So how does this stuff all fit into empty? In fact, before I go to that, are there any questions about backside coverage that I can answer for you guys? If not, then I'll just go to empty. Cone rule. Yeah, if one takes an outside release, the corner has him. If one stems inside, the corner's going to trail, and the safety has all of the vertical. Okay, and what that does is it tells that backer when we cone that you just sit. If you're not blitzing, you just sit and you just stay and you wait for the slant. But that safety should be coming down on the slant. So hopefully that answered. Rat just means a spy. He's just in the middle of the field. How much do you move the front 2-I-3 based on the back? We're going to start in a line. If like, this is basically what, if we were in a 4 down, this is what it would look like. If we run fist and he's to the field, then the will and the jack are going to take him. If he pushes, then I push. If he comes back this way, then the jack's going to work down. It's kind of like a shared rush type deal. In press, in cone, he's going to be outside leverage. In like stubby or special, he's going to be inside leverage. If inside release, are you having safety come out of the roof like Alabama? Yeah, I mean, if he goes outside release, I mean, it's basically you're gonna check mesh. If it's run, insert, or just cap the fit. If it's not, work through the post. 2 vert in cone. If 2 verts in cone, like if the back if it's cone, I'm not worried about the back. That's gonna be that. Sky rules means I'm gonna play from the table. So let me get back to so he's gonna be fit support. He's gonna start at 10 and he's just gonna step off and he's reading the mesh. And then he's basically holding the post. Yes, you can green dog the J. If I get a block, then he can go. Yeah, I mean, and that to me is in a 3 down. That's where you get your delayed rush, who you're sending. Whether if it's single receiver and you want the jack going, or if it's 2-by-2, you want the will going, or whoever's away from the back. That's all up to you. Have I played walk? Yeah, but that's more of like a 3 high. Safety stuff, or I don't really like walking him out and keeping that guy out there. I like him if I've done it and I've seen it, but I don't do it. No, I mean Shane, I'm not going to change the front. No, if I want to change the front, I'll use line movement, and then we'll stunt the line post snap. But I want to give you a static look early. And the reason why is I want everything to look the same. I'm not trying to beat the 40-year-old dude up in the box. Like I'm trying to beat the 17-year-old kid that's got to decide, do I hand the ball off or do I throw it? Or once I do that, who do I throw it to? I don't know, Coach Wood, I'm not going to do film today just because I don't have enough time to go through everything and then get through the film. So let's go to empty. So how does empty change? Empty, all we're going to do, if it's a 3 down, we're going to pull that guy out into a 5, get into a buck front. And then these guys got to know I'm carrying all unders. If I get anything underneath, and really if you're going to do drop 8, he's kind of that rat in the middle. He's got to take that cross, but I cannot let anything cross my face. Cannot let any. So if 3 comes in right now, I'm beating him up. And really, because usually in empty, if you're not really going to drop 8, you're going to either have like a high hole player and a low hole player. Work that guy, make that vertical, or you're going to send somebody on four. I think in the red zone, it's nice to have drop 8 because you're not going to get all the vertical pushes, and you can kind of flood the zones that way and really make that quarterback sit on that ball, especially if you got 2-5 techniques. But kind of split rules. How does this work? So you can see, like, if we get base and this guy's really tight and they're kind of middle of the field and they're kind of wide, then we'll play sky. If it's not, we'll play cloud. And the nice thing is all the sky and cloud fit everything that we're doing. So like when we go stump stubby or special, those kids already know cloud. They already know cover 2 read. And so it's easy. It's easier to go back and forth. Oh yeah. I mean, Morgan, obviously this is like camp rules, day 1. Hey, when we get empty, let's just line and we're dropping 8. This is what we're going to do. But yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to want to show games, and you're going to want to do things like that, and pop those guys out and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk about 4 down real quick, unless there's any other questions about empty. So I want to make sure that you 4 down guys, you get it, because I'm a 4 guy down at heart. Hopefully, if you saw with even the 3 down, I'm fighting to get to 4. So how does that 4 down change for me? First of all, is the will is now in conflict when the running back is set weak because he doesn't have a friend. Todd, push just means if I get the guy going, then I'm pushing with him. I'm going to push out with him. If it means late push, I'm going to hang and then push when the ball's thrown or push when I get out leveraged. So again, going back, Will is now in conflict because that boundary defensive end is gone. Quads versus gun far. I think it's important to understand because that it's easy for the Will to push with quads. Quads to me isn't that big of a deal. It's when they get it in quads. I mean, is the back is set to the trips. Gun far is now that Will is stressed because now he's got to hit the A gap because I'm in an underfront, but then he's also got to push with that back. And I think that's what you've got to understand is how does the back change your coverage primarily to the backside? How can you help the Will linebacker because he's the one in conflict? Do we treat gun far like empty? So going one step further, and like I said when we're talking about the empty coverage stuff, is do we treat this like empty? Are they always releasing the back? Like I know LSU is kind of the big one that all the offensive guys are talking about, and they're watching that and how much that back comes out of the backfield. Well, I would treat the back like that. I would just treat it like empty. It's empty rules. So we're probably going to play some sort of cloud concept with the back to help that backer just sit right there. So if we're getting the angle routes by the running back, or if we're getting, the rub routes like the slant and the wheel or a post and a wheel, that we're going to play that out with the back, with the DBs, and we're going to let that Will linebacker stay low. And I think that also helps you run with quarterback draw. And then finally, how can I help the Will out? I think that's the most important question that you got to ask is how can we help the Will out, and then identify going back to the beginning of what are they doing out of trips, what are they doing with the back, and then finally, how can we facilitate the Will in all of that, and how can we help him out? So here's a look at what it looks like from a 4-down perspective. If I get quads, notice nothing really changes. All I've taken is that jack. Now he's sitting down here at a 5 technique. And so you still have your heavy 5. The nose is now in a 2-eye. And I would suggest some of you 3-down guys that are heavy zone, if you're not running the tight front a bunch, is to play some G. Play a 2-eye and a 3, and kind of see how that goes versus some of those heavy zone teams. Because I feel like you might be able to mess with them a little bit because they're thinking 3 down and they're seeing a 2-eye and a 3 out there. But to the quad set, I mean, nothing changes, really. It's really when the back is set weak, he's got to now widen. So now becomes the issue of do we play some sort of a cover 2 concept here? Is the back working out? How do you decide under versus over? I'm an under guy, Cole. We're going to look like this versus trips every single time. And then if I want to move it, I'll move it. Anytime you move these guys over, now I've got to bring that safety down, and I don't want to do that just because I don't want to get into that situation. I think like if you're a mint guy, this is mint. He's a wide 5. He's in a 3 instead of a 4. Move him into a 0, and then he's heavy 5, so he's going to close that B gap, move him down. Now you're in a mint front. So if you're a 4-down team and you're looking to get into the mint stuff, 4 nose, which I prefer a shade, a 3 or a 4, and then a wide 5, and now you're in the mint. The 2-eye, the Martin, I like a 2-eye because it forces that I like to play with the guards. If you're going to pull a guard or if you're going to zone, I'm going to demand a double team. And I want that guard to have to work. And I feel like if that center, he's going to have to wall, or if he steps down, now I can close that out. If they're going to true zone it, he's got leverage to the opposite A gap. He can go cut that thing off right now. So if the back was set over here, let me get it over here. So if they're zoning this way and that center, it's true zone, he's just going to step up. Man, he's going to close out. Now the Will can bounce back. And so that's why I like that. Morgan, I think you have to. I think if you're going to run an over front, if you're going to move these guys over, he's got to take the A gap, and you got to bring him down. And that's why I'm not necessarily a fan of the over front. Because then you're in a different. I don't want to bring that guy down, because the moment I bring that guy down, I'm getting posts backside, and this is usually their dude. 2 eyes playing it a lot like you would a 4-eye. He's gonna engage, but he's keying the center. Center steps to him, hold your gap. Center steps away, close off his butt. Pistol doesn't change anything, no. Under by two also. Blake, I'm trying to understand what that means. Oh, under versus 2x2. Sorry. No. I want the 3 to the field. I want to protect the overhang. Yeah, the mic's going to hit, and if he's got to step out, if he's got to step outside, then he's going to give a rip call. I mean, we do have a 6-man box, Coach Wood. It is a 6-man box. He's got the A gap. You know, someone's going to take this B gap, and it's usually going to be that if it's zoned this way, or if they say they down block and they're pulling a guy this way, he's going to come down. He's going to close that up. Anytime there's 3 receivers, we're going to check the under, because it helps that Mike cover down to number 3, because that's who he's got to relate to. So again, I said at the beginning, quarters is it's a numbers game. 1, 2, 3. If I can count to 3, I can play quarters. And Mike always knows, always is going to relate off of 3. And so it just helps him with the cover down and reduces his conflict. And again, these are camp rules. So it's not like where you're going to get is offensive guys are going to start, I'll start doing this, I'll start doing that. Well, that's fine. But that's when you got to start coming in with a game plan. You got to start moving guys around. So the mic is hipped. He can plus his alignment depending on it. And I'll just be honest with you guys. I get asked all the time of, I'm going to run the snag, or how do you defend that? Guys, I haven't seen a snag route in a couple years because our Mike linebacker just sits there. And he's that 5 is rubbing. And so he knows that B gap's going to get closed, whether it's zone away or if they try and zone lock it, that guy's going to up and under. So to me, you know, a lot of the RPO stuff now, like if you run stress, you're going to get the bubble. Well, if they start killing you on bubble, check the stump. Now you leverage that guy. It's pretty good. Yes, Ryan, we did have a hell of a Mike linebacker. And I've been blessed, actually, the past 2 stops, I've been blessed with some of the best middle linebackers in the state. But I will say this, is that if they'll just hang there, it's kind of the same concept you have with you in 2x2 with your outside guy, with your outside linebackers, is that if you'll just hang there, because most RPOs now are in breaking. They're horizontal. They're stretching you. They're bringing you back inside, or they're sitting right there. If number 3 runs a cross route, is your Mike carrying the vert? So go back to this. If 3 runs across and the back is away, he's got to carry it. If the back is to him, then the Will's going to carry it, and you're probably getting some sort of a push, and then now he'll sink off. So I'm trying to be professional, Ryan. So to me, I think that going back to the 2x2 of when you're running over and protect the overhang, I think that it's important. Like for instance here, you know, I need that Mike. He's relating to 3. He's got to be able to cover down. If I move that guy over and now he's got the A gap, well, now he can't cover him down. Okay, coach, we'll push the Will over there. All right, now the Will's here, and now I'm asking a guy that doesn't play in the box to now play in the box. And the moment that he starts working down is when you start getting the glance routes from the backside. And I think that's it. You got to, at some point, you can't win everything, but I'm not going to give you a fatal throw. I'm not going to give you the post route. And I think that's kind of I think that's where you've got to kind of decide what you want to do. If they're in trips and they're trying to run the ball, then sink your safety in. That's fine. But but the moment you start doing that, if they start hitting you on the glance route, then now you got to play in front of the table. FIB into the boundary here. This is what it looks like, coach. Will just walks out. Mike kind of sits in a 50. Sam sits in a 30. And so you kind of, again, if they're doing this to run zone or stretch, you know, you set that wall here, let that guy run it down. And then, you know, here's the other thing that I found is, well, I don't want my nickel being in the box. Then play games up front. You know, to me, I think that's kind of the answer to that. coaching trips gun far. If the quarterback runs his back to mesh, is the mic folding inside hard? So if hold on, let me go. If it's back far and his back's to him, then yeah, he can start working back in, especially if the eyes aren't over here. Now be alert, everybody. I think you're going to start seeing, because LSU started doing it, and I mean I've talked about a flop read for a long time. I mean that's because I worked in Big 12, and it's been around for a long time. But that you're going to start getting if you start hammering him in. But yeah, notice the overhang away from the back, he can now work in. If I'm the overhang to the back, I need to hold my ground. If they go tray and back away, what would you do with that extra gap to the tight end? Well, if you're in an under front and they're in tray, he's got the B gap, he's got the A gap. You should be gapped out. You got the Sam linebacker who would be apex in between 2 and 3. So the Sam would be your force player there. Yeah, your will linebacker has to know stress, and he's got to understand that it's going to probably play more like box, that you're probably not going to get 3 verticals, but just carry the vertical at 2. Yeah, I mean, if you go in an over front and you want to pirate stun it to keep the mic out, yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all. I mean, that would be a change up for sure. And then also on the other side, if you want to pirate that to keep the down safety out of it. But again, the down safety should be the cap fit. He's the alley player. So here, he's the alley player. He's the quarterback. He's the pitch. He's the guy working over. So if you go speed option and he's optioning out, man, I'm working pitch. Or if we're playing cover 2 now, he's the pitch. I'm working out. I'm the quarterback. I'm the overlap guy. I like to box. I like box in the red zone, coach. Yes. Do you have a no cover zone? Yeah. It's 5 yards, and anything underneath, I don't want it. If it's a quick throw, so and no cover zone means that we're not gonna break on it. We're gonna if we run a negative route and the ball doesn't come out, I don't need to jump that route because it's just a decoy. They're just bringing it up. They're just trying to bring you up to run something behind you. And we've gotten better at that of understanding when are we not going to break down on a guy, when do we want to take him. So your Sam is attached on a string with the other 2 linebackers. Yes, I do. I don't like to spoke safeties. I just feel like I think for me, I've been in a situation where I've had a nickel that was a DB, and then this year we had a Sam that wasn't a DB, and I just think like if to ask him to sling back would have been a nightmare. And so for me, it's just keeping it consistent year to year, and let the safeties be the adjusters, and let the box players play the box. In 4 down, how do you adjust the motion? Everybody moves. The backers move. So we get this, and he comes over. I mean, the nice thing about it is, look, nobody moves. You're in an over front. He moves across. Sam moves out. Mike moves to a 0. Will hips. That's it. I mean, to me, that's why I like this front. And they go 3 into it to motion a guy out. I'm already in an over front. No, I don't like stress to tray. I'd rather just play. I either want to. It depends on what they're doing with the tight end. If the guy's a glorified tackle, then we might just lock the mic on him. If the guy is a threat, then we'll just play solo and let the mic and Will play the box. Yeah, divider rules is different than split rules. So split rules means the width of the receivers in accordance to each other. A divider rule would be where he's lined up on the field. So let's say that this is into the boundary, and let's say he's on the hash or inside the hash, he'll play outside. Anything outside the hash, he's inside. When he crosses the numbers, we want to stay attached to the numbers. Yeah, how do you the vert with a corner? And I'm assuming that you're talking about this. So if I get a vertical and I get a corner right here, is that he's got to eat that up. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, that's the beater for stress. And then the sit with the post behind it. But if he's running a corner, I mean, we work that every day in practice. So he knows. I mean, he knows that if he gets 2 vertical, he's working 3-2-1. If 2's vertical and 3's there, and we might be able to, that safety's got to dig that out. And that's still that's a long throw for that quarterback to make that play from the hash all the way to the opposite numbers. In camp, do you teach corners how to play safety and vice versa? Not really. Our corners play corner and then our safeties play safety. We might work a little super rotation and put the safety down at Sam, but not necessarily corners playing, unless I got a kid that I know might play some safety. Are you boxing GT back to that 3 technique? No, that end's gonna spill it. So like, let's say I get same side GT right here. He's deep set. I get same side GT. He's gonna spill that thing. He'll work over top and he'll meet it on the other end. Zach, not sure I know what MIDI is. Why not play special lock as opposed to stress? I don't like locking the corner on number 1. I would rather have the nickel have support. So going back to this, if I'm gonna run special, I'm gonna run stump because it lets that corner support him. And 2, if I'm getting a push by 3 or these 2 are tight, I'm gonna be in stump. So I mean, my kids know. Someone asked about dividers and split rules. Well, if these 2 get tight, I'm gonna move him out. I'm not a special guy. I stress to me, and again, I'm different. Not everybody runs stress. In fact, it's a Phil Bennett concept. So I'm sure, with nobody, there's not very many guys running it that are taught that were taught it by Coach Bennett. So I mean, I understand that it's a little different. But to me, I don't want to lock that guy on that guy. I want him to be able to support that nickel because that's what you're going to get. I mean, anytime, and I said this earlier in the deal, anytime you're in trips, this is the matchup. This is the matchup right here. And how do you protect that guy? Can I go back over 3x1? FIB? Yeah. It ends up playing like box, flat, seam, quarter. Because you're probably not going to get 3 verticals out of this. I'm sure there's somebody is, and it's probably in 7-on-7. Yeah, field corner. I'll go back over the field corner for stress rules. Is basically he's playing mod, and he's going to lean on 2. You got to just support him. It's not a cover 3 concept where he's got to play divider and he's got to be in the middle of the unit, but he's in charge of this unit. He's got him. If he goes vertical, I'm sinking with him. The Sam linebacker has to take him to his help. Why do you like Buck from empty? I get 2 5s. I get a double on the I get a single blocking on the tackle. And if you go and one of the knocks on the tight front is that you don't get a pass rush. And I think too a prime example of it, I just wrote about it with the Baylor stuff. The 505, they got sacks. You start running tight front and you start playing with a 5 and a 4-eye, and you're not sending an extra guy and you're playing a bunch of drop 8, you're not going to get sacks. I think so. I think 5s helps contain it. You can kind of keep you can play games with it. I just think it's better that way. Stump, just to go back over stump real quick. All you're taking is that Sam linebacker moving them out, and you're playing cover 2 over 2 and 3. And really that's it. I'm 3 down alignment to the front. I'm Okie. I'm running it just like this. So put this guy over here. The front stays the same. Put the 5 to the most receiver side. Let's see. Coach points on Sam. You just tell that Sam in stress is that you've got to wall and carry him. You're walling and carry. I'm keying 3. And I'm kind of stepping out. If he goes vertical, I'm beating him up. And it's the same way that you would play catch coverage. And he's man-to-man on 2 if he goes vertical and 1 goes vertical. He's going to sneak a peek at 1. If 1 sits down, or if we get a smash, like we get him to sit and he runs a corner, then that corner's going to take that corner, and he'll fall off. But he can play trail on that guy, but he's got to make that run that hump. He's got to make it run the hump. He's the key cog in stress. Empty, let me go back. I don't think I have empty in 4 down. No, let's just say it's here and the back comes out. Then we'll hit the will. or he'll stay in a 50. We'll probably run some sort of cloud concept to read over here to let him sit in here, and we'll probably play games to mess with the quarterback draw. You can, Jared. You can. We did on long downs, and then what we would do is we would let the inside linebacker spy. We called it cover me. And so if he went up and under and the quarterback steps out, well, then I'm going with him. The inside linebacker's playing spy, and now I've got him. And what we would do is now the jack and the Mike, now they're playing it like empty. If the tackle or H gets your linebacker on GT counter, are they spilling? I like the back. So camp rules is the even in 3 down, the backers box and the D line spills. And I'm kind of like with Don Brown. Like if you're an inside linebacker and you can't get over the top of a block back on a tackle, then I mean you're probably not going to play inside linebacker for very long. I mean, at some point you're going to have to make that play. I mean, I know that everybody talks about that. Oh, that guy's coming up. You know, especially like in this instance, you know, they're running something back here, and that guy's got a free release over here. Well, you should see that guard pull, and you should know that guy's coming. Yeah, Chris, I want to rally to it. We tell the kids here, it's probably not the most PC, but we tell the kids here, you don't want to take the fat chick to prom. So if you're going to go and you're going to break on that low-hanging fruit, then they're going to throw something right behind you. I don't like a lag get in because the center now, if you go up against a good center, then they can basically just play games in their zone schemes. They can kind of play games with that center and lock him on your nose. But if I put him in a shade or I put him in a G, now those two guys have to communicate. And if the center releases straight up, now the nose can cut off the A, and now we can belly key. Do you peel the DN to take the running back? Yeah, like if you do a shared rush stuff, that's some stuff that we've talked about this year. We didn't get to it. But something to look at in the future is definitely share rush and that stuff. I think it's good, especially in your 4 down. Like if you're a 4 down, you got a hybrid D into the boundary, and you know he can match up with a running back, and playing some peel stuff I think is good.
Hey, Coach, you got a couple minutes.
Yeah, I got you. Molinix, you said you let your safeties make the coverage call. Do you just game plan? Yeah, we game plan everything week to week. The kids know it, and then we run it that week. But they also know we carry everything into every game. So the kids know, and it's all determined on splits of the receivers. Yes, they're guard to mesh, Coach Sam. So the guards are going to tell you. I mean, it doesn't matter. Those guards are going to tell you. And then your anchor point. If your anchor point flashes in front of your face, then you need to cross, especially if it's zone. Sam plays with the linebackers. Yeah. Now, if you got a kid that's a true nickel and he's a DB, and then what I would do, and the way to adjust with that is you know, after you get done with your line drills, is have them and play some half line stuff with them, and so that way you can teach them all the same way. But I do think that when you practice trips, that you really got to bring that Sam over there, and he's got to understand especially if he's working with the linebackers. Everything's hand signaled, and they got to reciprocate. I think that's a good question. How do you communicate? Everything's hand signaled because the thing is a lot of times these kids think that they're talking and nothing's coming out of their mouth. So we use hand signals, and also the linebackers have to be on the same page. They got to know what the formation is too, and they got to know where the back is. So I think that's important. Split rules is really just, Chris, I didn't go over it very much because it's trips, but if like 2 and 3 get close together and it's not a base alignment and they're like within 4 to 5 yards of each other, we're probably going to get out of stress and check the stump because they're probably going to rub off of each other. Trips with an ineligible, we'll mess with that with the safeties. So if they bring him on and they drop him off, then we're gonna play. We'll move these guys into the box and we'll kind of play games with this. So, if there's any other questions? I think Coach told me I only had a couple minutes.
You got one more, Coach?
Nothing. I think that's the nice thing about it. Steph 8 or if the running back flips sides, what changes? Nothing. I think the leverage of the back, you know, if it's 4 down, the wheel can kind of move into a 0 if it goes from back to that. You know, I think that's kind of I want the least movement possible. Teams don't motion against me because we're not going to move. And I think that's kind of the point. Is everything split field, everything checks, everything is based off a number, so the kids already know. And yeah, I use PowerPoint for my stuff. So if you're interested in all this, I've got articles on all these on my site. My latest book, Match Quarters, is basically a guidebook, and it goes through all of this stuff. And so if you're interested in that, if you go to the QR code right there, it takes you to the books. And again, the DM's open. So if you have questions, just DM me your questions, or use the contact tab on my website and email me any questions you might have. So hopefully, I'm a little different when it comes to trips. I'm not like a lot of guys. I just have a different viewpoint, and it comes from my background with Art Briles and Phil Bennett. But what I've done is proven, and all the stuff that you saw here, we ran at Midlothian, and we ran that with not having one Division I football player. So I mean, you can do this at any level and anywhere. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And thanks, Coach G, for having me on.